Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and everyone in between. It's Sky, and today I'm going to be doing another age regression one-shot reading. This one is a one-shot with a platonic relationship between Aizawa and Midoriya. It's completely platonic, no romance, no nothing. Just a teacher-student It's a teacher-student stuff. So don't go yelling at me. I hold this one shot really close to my heart. And it's a longer one, so I'll only be reading this. And there's a few things I want to go over at the end, mostly about the one shot. Link to the story it's in the description below, as always. And alright, I'd like to put a little trigger warning as well. Zuko, there's a lot of crying with Zuko because, it's Deku, of course. And yeah, I hope y'all enjoy. It started the moment Aizawa announced to the class that his office would be open for anyone who needed a safe place to relax, talk, even cry. After everything his students had endured while trying to become pro-heroes, he felt he owed it to them to try and build a better connection with them. He learned a lot about his students after that day. Kaminari's undiagnosed ADHD, Jiro being hard of hearing, and that Bakugo was capable of showing emotion other than anger. And Izuku. He was a wild card. There was plenty that needed to be unpacked about his number one problem child. But the green-haired boy never outright came out and explained things to him, and he never pushed him to. All things were assumptions based on little things his student would say and do. The first day he approached his office, he was clearly nervous and scared. He stood outside the door for a good 5 minutes before deciding to finally knock. And when Aizawa let him in, he could immediately tell he was not at all there mentally. He was wearing his school uniform as per rule, but Aizawa could see through his backwards dress shirt to his undershirt that was All Might themed. And his pant legs were tucked into bright, fluffy, long socks. His big red shoes were sloppily put on, judging by the untied black laces, and his hand at his side was holding an old, worn-out stuffy that lost its recognizability with how old it was. But most importantly, this kid looked like he woke up from a nap. His freckled face a rosy red and expression dazed like he couldn't grasp reality after being in dreamland for so long. His hair was messy and flat on one side like he had felt comfortable sleeping in one spot for a long time. It looked like Izuku had a good nap. Aizawa felt jealous. "Can I come in?" Izuku finally asked in a quiet, childlike voice, shuffling nervously from foot to foot. Without a word, Aizawa stepped to the side and let him inside, to which his student responded with, "Thanks." The green-haired boy found a spot on the couch that was backed against the front of his desk, so when Aizawa made his way back to sit in the desk chair, all he saw was the back of Izuku's head and a little bit of his shoulders. Since it didn't seem like his student wanted his full attention, he went back to his paperwork. They went the next few hours like that. While Aizawa worked on grading papers and sorting other stuff out, he carefully watched Izuku. The boy quietly played with his stuffy on the couch. The older male tried to rack his brain on where he had seen this. He knows he learned about it when becoming a teacher. Izuku was displaying the classic behaviors of a well-mannered toddler. Something clicked in Aizawa's brain. He's age regressing. So Aizawa treated Izuku a little differently each time he came to his office, speaking to him softly and engaging with him in childlike ways. They came up with a schedule, Aizawa started leaving coloring books and crayons out for Izuku when he came by, and soon was holding a bunch of little fidget toys in his office, too. They started getting closer in ways that made Aizawa happy to see. Izuku was even more comfortable with him than with his idol, All Might. He looked at Aizawa with sparkles in his eyes whenever his teacher gave him an ounce of encouragement to be his unfiltered little self. One day, little Izuku came in crying. It alarmed Aizawa at first, but quickly turned into weakly trying to hide his amusement at the sight of Izuku's hair. It was messy, even more untamed than it usually was, a brush handle barely seen sticking out of the mess. Izuku sobbed into his hands after seeing the badly hidden expression on his face. The little one was clearly frustrated to tears, and Aizawa couldn't sit and watch any longer. Okay, let's settle down, kiddo. Come here. He got up and led the crying boy over to the couch, sitting him down without much struggle. He also sat down and turned his kid so his back faced him. I'll help you out. Get all untangled here, okay, kidlet? He heard a little sniff and watched the green mess of hair bob. So Aizawa started to untangle the brush free from Izuku's head. It took a lot of concentration and patience. Aizawa was almost scared he would knot his own fingers in the thick, coarse hair of Izuku's. Soon enough, he felt the little bundles of knots weakly give away from his gentle tugging, receiving only small whines from the little in front of him. He pulled the brush free after a few more knots gave away. Aizawa loosely held it in his grasp and frowned. Izuku sighed at the feeling, glad the brush was finally off his head, and turned to see Aizawa get up off the couch, his brush in hand. He quickly wiped his tears away. Sensei, what? This brush doesn't suit your thick hair. No wonder it got stuck. Aizawa held up the soft bristled brush. A nylon one would be better. I think I have one here somewhere. Izuku watched his teacher circle around his desk and rummage through the drawers. A couple of seconds later, he let out an aha and pulled out the said brush, switching it with his old one, tossing it in his drawer, and instead circling back with the new one. He sat on the couch and showed Izuku. Do you see here? He made the little touch a sharpish, pointy ends, with significantly more bristles placed on the brush. These bristles are made to pass through thick hair. He handed the brush over. Izuku just looked at it blankly, sparing a glance up at his teacher with a small pout. Aizawa could guess what he wanted. You want me to brush your hair? Please. Aizawa gently turned Izuku away again and carefully combed his hair, grabbing it in parts and brushing the ends first before making his way down to the root. When he was done, he grabbed another handful of tangled hair and repeated the process. While he did this, he asked, Didn't your parents ever teach you how to take care of your hair? One of them has at least got to have hair like yours. Izuku merely shrugged, speaking so softly Aizawa almost didn't hear him. It's just me and my mommy, and she has thin hair, so she doesn't really know how to take care of my thick hair. Aizawa hummed, not commenting anymore, assuming the father of his was overseas, as so many single moms put it for children to understand. He turned back to focus on brushing the little's hair, almost halfway done. When he finally finished, he set the brush down and turned Izuku once again back so he faced him. He found new tears brimming in the little's big eyes and immediately asked, What's wrong? Was I hurting you? No, the little denied. He caved, sobbing. I just feel really sad. I don't know why. Do you want a hug? Aizawa didn't have time to prepare as the green-haired boy jumped into his arms without a second to lose. This must have been what he wanted since the beginning, letting his arms wrap around the little and rub his back soothingly. He held him for as long as he needed it, letting Izuku be the one to let go first, which he didn't for another 20 minutes. It was by that time Aizawa realized, when his cries ceased, that the green-haired boy had fallen asleep on his shoulder. He chuckled, deciding to have a nap too. Another time, when Izuku came to his office, Aizawa became almost downright furious with All Might. The green-haired boy was littered with bruises and scratches. The damage done was way worse than it should be in regular training. He'd have to grill All Might about the cruel workout regimen he's got Izuku on. Still, Aizawa wasn't one to coddle. He was raising future pro heroes. If he kissed every skinned knee along the way, there would be more dead pro heroes than alive ones. But this was his student, who was most likely age regression, judging by his wobbly lower lip and brimming tears. He was clutching his old stuffy in his arms again, but this time tighter and tucked under his chin. Izuku stood there numbly, the door slowly closing on its own behind him. Over the top of his stuffy, his fingers picked at the scabs on his knuckles. Aizawa noticed his messily bandaged wrist, most likely sprained. "Are you okay, kid?" Izuku nodded weakly, then wincing hard. It was enough to push his tears out of his eyes. Quickly wiping them away, he whispered in a soft, high-pitched voice, "I'm okay, I think." "You don't look fine, kidlet." Aizawa just as softly disagreed. "I'm okay," Izuku said a bit louder, but lacked the passion in his voice. "I'm gonna be a hero. Gotta be strong and stuff." "You don't have to be strong 24/7. He got up, approaching his student. "There are moments we need to refine our groundings, take a break, and breathe." "I don't," Izuku disagreed. "I'm like All Might, saving everyone." "Even All Might takes breaks, little one." He brushed the damp hair matted to the little's sweaty forehead away, continuing to run his hand through Izuku's hair when he found he enjoyed it, Izuku nuzzling into his palm like a cat. He petted his hair for as long as the little needed it. His student was clearly in a daze, as he could practically see the gears turning in his head. Izuku finally snapped out of his trance, looking up at Aizawa nervously, stuttering, I... Yeah? Aizawa tried to show support, but it only made Izuku snap his mouth shut and look down sadly. The older man sighed, his hand moving to rub Izuku's back soothingly. He led him to the couch and sat down, moving the little on his lap. While the boy was surprised, emitting a gasp, he still much welcomed the embrace, cuddling as close to Aizawa as he could. Aizawa repeated, hoping to get Izuku on the same page. It worked. "I want to color," he finally whined, "and watch cartoons, and I wanna..." He fell short, still holding something back. Aizawa wanted to know what it was. "You wanna?" Aizawa encouraged him. Izuku finally blurted out what he wanted to say. "I want to be small. I want to feel the fuzzies sometimes and do things that make me happy, even if it means drinking out of baby bottles and having pretty passies and... Izuku started crying mid-sentence again, clutching Aizawa's shirt and burying his head in the crook of his shoulder. After a moment, he heard Izuku's muffled voice. "I'm sorry. This is weird. I can't help it. Shh." Aizawa calmed him, one hand rubbing his back, the other smoothing his hair out. You can be small here. It's okay. I already said this was a safe place for everyone. Even me? Izuku nervously asked, head bobbing up from Aizawa's neck. Yes, even you, Aizawa assured. Especially you. You're my number one problem child. Someone has got to look out for you. Izuku was confused by what Aizawa called him, but was too small to care. He heard the word safe place and immediately let go, hugging Aizawa with all his might and crying out his appreciation. Thank you, Zawa. When Izuku was done crying and Aizawa could pull him away again, he asked, hoping to get Izuku's mind off stressful things. Who's this? You haven't introduced me. He gestured to the odd stuffy in Izuku's arms, which had been originally smushed in their hug. Oh, this is Tinkerbear, Izuku murmured, holding it up for Aizawa to see. Sure it was a bear. Maybe. It looked so old and worn. It looked more like a rugged mess of innocent yellow fluff. But the angry-looking face peeking out of the fur made it seem like Izuku's Tinkerbear had committed mass murder with a promise to do it again. The resemblance to one of his students made Aizawa worry about the explosive boy's future. He makes noise, the little informed, twisting something in the back of the stuffy. The music it made was downright awful. It grated on Aizawa's ears as the tinkering box inside the stuffy sounded like an old haunted tune. He kept his mouth shut, though, watching Izuku's face relax at hearing the song. He seems very nice. Yeah, Izuku smiled, agreeing, not noticing his teacher lying through his teeth. He hugged his stuffy and wiggled happily. While Tinkerbear kept Izuku entertained, it allowed Aizawa to assess the damage done to the boy, checking his bruises and searching for still bleeding cuts. On the brighter side, most of Izuku's cuts had scabbed over and the scratches were already starting to heal. His wrist only seemed to be minorly sprained, but Izuku kept moving his arm away every time Aizawa tried to check. There was no need for a recovery girl, and since Izuku whined out a no when he suggested, Aizawa just stuck to sitting on the couch and bouncing the little in his lap. The action proved to be fun for the little as he giggled. But soon they both grew tired, as it was starting to darken outside. I think you should go back to your room, little one. No, Izuku whined. Wanna stay. Almost immediately after, the little yawned. Aizawa chuckled. I want to stay too, but I'm tired and need to go to bed, and I know you do too. Izuku pouted, clearly denying it, but his slowly closing eyes were a different story. After yet another yawn, he finally agreed. Oh, Tay. Izuku wiggled off his lap and let him guide him to the door. Just before he left, Aizawa gave him a kiss on the forehead. Good night, little one. The little gave him a quick hug. Night, Zawa. Then Izuku disappeared from sight. Aizawa quickly cleaned things up for the night and swiftly left, planning to hunt someone down. He was going to rip All Might a new one, as he promised earlier. I hope y'all enjoyed that one. As I said, this one is very close to my heart. I think it's because I like that feeling of acceptance and just Izuku finally talking about what he wants and not what he thinks he should want. It just made me feel really happy and understood. I'm also going to be using it to tell my mother that I am a little, so that's gonna be fun. I'm doing that, very soon while I'm at school. So that's a thing that I'm worried about, of course. Again, please go read the story itself. I realize I didn't mention the chapter name. The chapter name is Dadzawa and Problem Child Number 1. So please go check it out. I especially love how this story was written. And I hope y'all have a wonderfully lovely, awesome, amazing day or night, considering I'm reading this at like 1:30. Anyway, goodbye and stay safe out there.